Good afternoon. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Austin Evans. We are talking here on KSLA.com as live stream, talking 2023 hurricane season. So we have a big old long list of names that go from A through W, and this is a look at all those names here. We will start with Arlene once we get to our first named storm, which they have to be tropical storms to be officially named. They have to get over all the humps that development involves, and we will be looking at Arlene being the first name, and then we go to Brett, Cindy, Dawn, and so on and so forth there. So if, a couple years ago, we had so many named hurricanes out in the Atlantic, and sometimes we have to start diving into the Greek alphabet. Now, the names list changes every year. The Greek alphabet does not. And if for whatever reason we have so many storms that we have to put names on, if we run out of names, we will start using the Greek alphabet. We'll start with alpha, and then we'll go beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, etc. And that is what we are going to be doing if we run out of names, which is really rare. It doesn't happen all that often. This is a look at the most recent major hurricanes to hit the Gulf coast of the United States. Harvey, Laura, Ida, Michael, and Ian. And the name is being covered up there. That would be Irma in southern Florida. A major hurricane is a hurricane of Category 3 strength or greater. It's a pretty rare thing. This is since 2017, and this is the Category 4 and 5 Gulf landfalls since then. So when talking about hurricanes, we got to discuss the strongest ones dating back to the 1850s, and back then, they were not named. As you can see, we have Ida, we have Laura, Betsy, and even back in the 1890s, we had a very strong hurricane hit Louisiana. Obviously, was not named either. This is a look at some of the statistics there, and obviously we can discuss Katrina as well back in 2005 that hit New Orleans and a lot of southern Louisiana. So taking a look here at the Saffir-Simpson scale, let's talk about the different levels of hurricane. Category 1, minimal damage, still a very dangerous situation. All hurricanes can be potentially dangerous with extreme winds and excessive damage, extensive damage starting to move in during the Category 2 storms. Once we hit Category 3, that's when we're at that major hurricane level. We are talking devastating damage and extreme winds, and we're talking some pretty bad storm surge as well. I'll get to what storm surge is in just a moment. Taking a look at Category 4, this is when we're starting to get to those historic level storms, those ones whose names often get retired because of how devastating they are to communities. Category 4, 130 to 156 mile per hour sustained wind. We're talking catastrophic damage there. And eventually, Category 5 storms, catastrophic damage, 157 plus miles per hour. These are the worst of the worst when it comes to hurricanes. And eventually, we start to see insane levels of devastation. So here is a look at storm surge. So what is storm surge? Storm surge is the pushing of the ocean surface by the hurricane winds, by the storm winds. And you'll notice sometimes when a hurricane is approaching landfall, the ocean will retract because the storm surge is actually working in the opposite direction, but once that hurricane gets closer to landfall, it will start pushing essentially the coastline inward, and that can be very devastating as well, even outside of the wind and the rain. So 3 feet, this is considered minor, and honestly doesn't happen all that often when we're talking hurricanes. When we're talking hurricanes, we usually start to get into that 6 feet category, which often puts communities under at least some amount of water. Eventually, some strong hurricanes can push a storm surge up to 12 feet or more, and that is completely devastating communities. That is putting entire communities, neighborhoods underwater up to the roof of their houses. And this is a situation that we never ever want to see, but every now and again it does happen. So the threats from tropical systems for us here in the Arklatex, typically we don't see, obviously we're not going to see the storm surge. We're way too far inland for that. If we see storm surge, something horrible has gone wrong to our south, but we usually see a lot of heavy rainfall. We can see embedded tornadoes. This is a type of severe weather that can spawn tornadoes. Obviously damaging wind can make it up to us, but the biggest impacts are to our south. But when they do make it up to our region, the biggest impacts occur along the east of the storm's center. That's where the wind is the greatest, and along that eye wall, the wind is the greatest, the rain is the hardest, and that is the more devastating areas of hurricanes for us. Taking a look at hurricane season, typical peak season is between August and October. Our official hurricane season starts on June 1st of every year. So that is just around the corner, which is why we're discussing hurricanes today. That is something that we are going to be forecasting on a fairly regular basis going forward. And if you do remember, just a few days ago we were talking about there was an area of concern that the National Hurricane Center was keeping an eye on for the potential of tropical development. However, the chances of anything coming out of that development is extremely low. It's still really early in the hurricane season. It's not unheard of to find a hurricane before the month of June. We've had that several years ago. In fact, we started having hurricanes popping up very, very early, but that doesn't seem to be happening this year. So peak hurricane season typically between August and October, and sometimes, again, they can last even into November and December. The year that we ran out of names to use was a very, very long hurricane season indeed. So that is a look at the hurricane season and the upcoming hurricane season, and the things that make hurricanes very, very dangerous, but also for meteorologists quite fascinating. We do love, we do like the science portion of it, but that obviously hurricanes can be potentially devastating. So we'll see you at 4.